Hey everybody, welcome. This is another movie review. We're just back from the office. Back into the office. Opening night of The Dark Knight Rises. I'm Dave Herndon.
I'm David Comer.
So let's get right into it. What'd you think?
The Dark Knight Rises. Probably the most anticipated movie of the summer.
Ditto.
And, obviously, in light of the tragedy, our hearts go out to those affected. But, and it did affect a little bit of how much I enjoyed the movie. But with that being said, it was an epic, and it's definitely on the must list for summer. And to me, it lived up to my expectations. Dave, you came away feeling a little flat, but entertained, right?
I was definitely entertained. It was a little flatter than I had hoped, but I also went in kind of knowing I wasn't going to get everything I wanted out of it. It's the third movie in a trilogy. The third movies are always a little bit of a letdown. You have to spend time wrapping up some storylines and yada yada. And I think I'm not fully happy the way they wrapped up some of the storylines. I'm a little let down. I think Nolan caved in a little bit on some of the things that I was hoping he wouldn't cave in on. But overall, I'm really happy with the movie. It was very well edited in the sense of, you had your action, but you had your story. You didn't have too much of one and then too much of another. It flowed really well.
I loved it. To me, this is probably me it's still in a euphoric state. I liked it, I think, maybe a little more than Dave, but to me, I think this is the best movie of the three. And I think, and even the most ardent fan of the second movie, I think, would agree that this is better than the first. In my humble opinion, I thought this had everything you'd want. The trailers really kind of, I don't know, they didn't show all the best scenes, but again, 2 hours and 45 minutes, you're going to see an epic. And to see the movie opens with Bruce Wayne having become a recluse, very Howard Hughes-esque, squirreled away in his mansion. And it's been 8 years since the events of the Dark Knight movie. So what happens from there is obviously there's a call to action, and you kind of get to see Bruce Wayne at his weakest in many areas.
Well, and let me just stop you right there before we get any further into this. I do want to let anybody that's watching know there will be spoilers in this. We're going to talk about everything.
Except the end.
So if you don't want to be spoiled, don't watch the rest of this. All right, now go ahead and continue.
So the main thing is, without giving away too much, but giving away a little, you get to see Bruce Wayne pretty much have to kind of come back from nothing. You've got basically the city's living under the false assumption that the Batman was the root of its ills, that he killed Harvey Dent. That Harvey Dent is, they've got the Dent Act, which has imprisoned many more evildoers, and the city's living under a false pretense, but a false pretense of peacefulness. And Jim Gordon, the commissioner, has kind of helped perpetrate this, and kind of is looking at the greater good, the big picture. And but in the end, things come home to roost, and Batman is needed once again. Dave, did you find that aspect of the story kind of engrossing? Did that pull you in the beginning?
Well, with that, I really thought it harkens back to one of my favorite Batman arcs that doesn't involve the Joker, and it was really reminiscent of The Dark Knight Returns in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
It obviously wasn't quite as dark as that comic was. The situations were slightly different. But
coming out of bat mothballs, as it were.
Right, and being that it grabbed me right there early on, it really had me for definitely the first act of the movie with that. The only bad thing with that is we didn't get to see as much Batman as I would have liked early.
I'd agree with that. I'd agree.
But definitely I loved the character. I loved the fact that he's walking around with a cane. He looks basically like a cripple, and then he goes to the doctor, and the doctor tells him he's a cripple. He's
taxed his body, basically.
And within minutes of the doctor telling him that, he repels out the window of the hospital.
Well, hey, you gotta love it. Obviously, along the way, Anne Hathaway is in it as Catwoman, although she's not really referred to as that.
they never refer to her as Catwoman. They do refer to her as a cat burglar.
Yes, yes.
But she is Selena Kyle, so.
I know you weren't too thrilled with her. Why not?
Well, I don't think the character really added an extremely lot to the movie as a whole. You know, obviously she played into the climax and the wrap up, but throughout the course of the movie, I thought it could have been any character there basically, other than when she stole Bruce's pearls.
See, she starts out as an adversary, but a bit of an irritant more than anything. In the end, she becomes more of an adversary. And to be honest, I liked her. I really thought she brought enough to the role. I thought the character was solid. To me, I thought it was just about right. I didn't want to see her kind of steal the show, but as a la Michelle Pfeiffer in Batman Returns, where she was so good that she outshone almost everything else in the movie, including a horrible turn by Danny DeVito as Penguin, and really kind of propped up an average movie, in my opinion. And but in this, I think you were left wanting more, but almost too much more of Michelle Pfeiffer. This time around, though, I think it was a good character, a little less. And I thought really they gave you the right amount of Catwoman and Selena Kyle, and I thought her motivations kind of rang true with why she why she becomes a part and sucked in more than anything into the main plot. To me, I thought it propelled the story forward and worked.
And then, moving on to talk about some of the other villains, guest stars, however you'd like to point it out.
Bane, discuss.
Bane, I really liked the way they played him off for the most part. Again, there was a point at the end where I didn't like the way the character wrapped up, so to speak. But throughout the course of the movie, the character was really well developed. We got enough of his backstory, or so we thought, anyway, that we really you were invested in the character, even though he was the bad guy. Tom Hardy's choice of the voice, I thought, was a little off-putting at times because he does have a lot of exposition in some scenes. But other than when he's talking for, entire speeches, or if the scene in the football stadium where he's talking through a microphone and they've got that feedback going as well, that was a little off-putting, but again, Batman's voice is too when he's giving those long speeches. But overall, I was really happy with the way the character progressed.
I loved him. I thought it was a great. He made for a great villain. I really liked how he was. I really liked how he was presented. At times, he was almost more of a force of nature than almost a human adversary, which got to be a bit trying. But then again, I mean, Nolan, in the past couple movies, enemies have seemed larger than life as well. And as everyone knows, a really good movie, let alone superhero movie, is driven by the mystique or the interest that the villain kind of creates. And I thought Bane was a really good driving force. And there's some spectacular action sequences. And
I also really liked the couple of different fight scenes we get to see between Batman and Bane. It was more of a traditional action movie there, not a superhero movie. It was just the good guy, the bad guy having an all-out brawl. Mm-hmm. Except during that last fight when Bane missed Batman a couple times and punched through a cement pillar.
Well, not through it, but he chipped off some rock. Yeah, I can see that.
But I love that they didn't overpower him to the point of the big hulking Joel Schumacher Bane.
Right. Right. I thought it was really good. Obviously you've got really good appearances from some of the other, pretty much Commissioner Gordon.
Well, let's finish up the villains at first.
Yes.
I don't think it was anybody surprised that Liam Neeson was back as Ra's al Ghul. It was one of the worst kept secrets when he spent his day on set. I was really surprised by the reappearance of Jonathan Crane. I really didn't think he was going to be in the movie, and I had stayed away from any cast lists or anything where I might have seen spoilers that way. So I was really surprised to see him show up, but I really liked what they did with the character.
I loved it. And Jonathan Crane, for anyone who's having trouble remembering, is the Scarecrow.
Right, he was the main villain from the first movie, at least until the end when we found out Ra's al Ghul was the big bad, but he also made a cameo appearance in the second film in the series, and then obviously he had a cameo in the third. I just thought it was cool they brought that character back.
Sure.
Something I felt a little bit off-putting though was the Joker is such a big thing in this franchise, and he's not mentioned at all throughout the entire movie.
That was a conscious decision, though. By
It was, and I don't fault them for it. I just think that nobody mentions the Joker at all.
Right.
It's a little off-putting in the sense of everything that went on in universe. I think they could have mentioned him and not shown him and still paid proper respect to Heath Ledger.
But there's still the whole fallout that is felt from the last movie with Maggie Gyllenhaal's character being dead. Interestingly enough, that was not a photo of Katie Holmes that he was keeping in a frame. It was Maggie Gyllenhaal who passed away in the last movie. I'm forgetting her name, but the love interest.
Rachel Dawson.
Rachel Dawson, thank you. And
Dawes,
yes.
Excuse me.
And
I was thinking Katie Holmes, Dawson's Creek.
And to me, nice. And to me, that kind of scratched that itch, if you will, of there being some resonance from the last movie.
Well,
so to me, it really
of course,
didn't matter.
Aaron Eckhart appeared as Two-Face in photos.
Right.
And a flashback scene.
Right.
So, I mean, we did have enough from the last movie. I just really thought as big a character, as over the top as the Joker was in the universe, that somebody would have at least mentioned him.
I think when you mix in the tragedy, that was something they probably wanted to stay clear of.
And I'm not faulting them for it.
Right.
It was a little weird for me in universe for him to not have been mentioned.
I can see that.
I fully get the reasoning behind it.
Right.
Moving on to the cast of the good guys.
Mm-hmm.
You already mentioned Commissioner Gordon.
Yes, played by one of your favorites.
I love Gary Oldman.
Yes.
It's blasphemous that he hasn't won multiple Oscars.
Hear, hear.
But he once again turns in a phenomenal performance.
And Detective John Blake, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I really liked him a lot. I thought he hit all the right notes. Plays an important role with the good guys, so to speak. And I had no problems with it. I know you had a few issues.
I had zero problems with him until his final two scenes. Until the final two scenes, I thought the character was phenomenal. I don't believe that's a character out of the comics at all. I think it's one that was created specifically for the movie. I could be wrong. But, he moves from officer to detective really quickly throughout the movie. But I really think that was a very well laid out role. It was perfectly cast. He executed perfectly. And really, not the actor's fault of why I didn't like it at the end.
See,
I really didn't like the last two scenes that he was in.
And I had no such qualms. I thought it was great. And he ends up playing a very important role towards the end. And to me, I had no issues with it. And I thought, and it was kind of refreshing to see some Gotham City cops working together, and no one's betraying anyone with a knife to the back. And for me, I reached a point of, although I love the last movie dearly, I reached a point of fatigue with the conspiracy and web upon web of everyone on the take. I have expected streetlights to fall over on purpose into the path of police cars or Batman, just because the entire universe was against brute Batman. But that neither here nor there. I thought it was pretty cool, just the setup and the way everything kind of came together.
And there were several other main characters, but the only other one I really want to talk about...
Marion Cotillard?
Well, I was going to say Alfred.
Ah, yes, Alfred Pennyworth.
I thought, once again, Michael Caine turned in a heart-wrenching role there in his last couple of scenes.
And Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox, I'd say ditto. But obviously the real emotional punch came with Michael Caine. And you really get to see a real good look at the relationship and kind of the fatherly relationship he had with Bruce Wayne, and kind of the ups and downs they go through.
And then getting into Marilyn Cotillard, I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
Cotillard, perhaps.
I kind of saw where they were going with that real early on.
See, I did not at all. And to be honest, when there is a twist, I was a little let down by it. I can't lie.
Well, we did mention we were going to talk into spoilers, so we don't really need to hide it. We find out late in the movie.
Stop now or forever hold your peace if you don't want to know a little bit more.
But we do find out late in the movie that she is Ra's al Ghul's daughter, Talia. I suspected that from the time they cast her.
Let me just tell you, Talia was one of the first female comic characters that made my little heart go pitter-patter. That is not Talia. Talia is supposed to be molten lava hot. All right? She is not. She is, and Maggie Gyllenhaal is an attractive lady in real life, by real life standards, but not really, and granted, you don't want a starlet who's luscious. I understand. But at the same time, for Talia, sex was like her whole thing back in the day. If you read really old Batman
This character
comics.
was not
anything
but.
She's a little more stately, and obviously you needed that for her position. She plays a higher member of society who's a philanthropist and millionaires, much like, Bruce Wayne is a billionaire, but pretty much almost like a female equivalent in a lot of ways. To me, her character for most of the movie was okay. And when they do a few things at the end and reveal her, I was kind of let down because I thought that was kind of predictable.
Well, also, if you look at it, less than halfway through the movie, they tipped you off to who she really was anyway.
See, I was hoping against hope just because she wasn't hot.
But in the scene where her and Bruce make love, if you will, we don't really see that, but where they wake up almost nude, you see the mark of the League of Shadows on her back.
Right.
I'm not sure if you caught that.
See, I did not.
But she had the scar on her back. Bruce caught it.
Well, she said she made mistakes.
But also...
And he said, hey, I have too, as they're looking at scars.
But also in that same scene, she mentioned how she had climbed up from poverty. And literal climb up, rise, as within the title.
Right.
It was a really big factor into the end. I don't want to spoil that.
Right.
Although we have talked spoilers, I don't want to spoil that piece.
Right, and there's a lot we won't go into just because
And I'm not going to talk about the last 5 minutes at all.
Right, but I thought that, again, the Talia thing, again, though, for me it's just a minor detraction from the whole thing. It almost plays like a love letter to comic fans. It really made you, to me anyways, it reminded me why I love the movies.
Well, and I've got to ask you, what did you think of The Bat? It was only referred to as The Bat, but quite obviously it was the Bat plane or the Bat copter, depending on how you want to look at it.
Right. Thought it was great. I have no problem with it. At times it stretches the credibility a little. It's like, wow, I didn't know Bruce Wayne mastered anti-gravity. But I had no problem with it. It was very stylistically similar to the Batmobile, and I had no issues.
And that's one other complaint I have, is while there were several tumblers in the movie, there was no Batmobile. Bruce Wayne, Batman, neither one never drove the Batmobile, and even when in the cave scenes, you didn't even see it in the cave.
I had no issues with it.
It's just, it's the first Batman movie I can think of, it's the first one, that didn't have the Batmobile in it. And that detracts just a little bit from me. I wish they could have easily used it in one scene. I mean, any one scene. I'm not saying like they should have used it in that one particular scene, but they could have easily used it, is what I'm saying.
Well, one thing I kind of appreciated, and some people may say it's a little on the nose, we hear a lot about the 99% and the 1%ers. Although this was more like the 60% against the 40%, or maybe the 70 versus 30. But really, you have Gotham fall into anarchy a bit, with obviously Bane's hand pushes the events in motion, and I thought it kind of plays on some greater themes of society that we're talking about now, and a lot of great movies reflects the time and day that it was filmed in, reflecting society's fears, thoughts, what have you. To me, some may say it was a little on the nose because you have a little of the rich being pulled out of their homes and stuff like that. But to me, I thought it was interesting because you see kind of what happens when things, obviously, anarchy, never a good thing. But you see what happens when things kind of disintegrate. Did that bother you at all, or did you like that?
I loved that, and I loved
Really was a dark twist in a dark trilogy.
Well, and I love the fact that with that now...
With The Dark Knight. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm done.
But I love the fact that now with that, now that order has been restored, so to speak, they're going to rebuild the bridges, and now how do they go back to living side by side again? Like, that's the next movie, really, but obviously there won't be a next movie, but I love those twists within the movie. Really, I mean, I'm nitpicking to find the things I didn't like, but, final thoughts from me before I give you my grade. Like, really, I will nitpick a movie I liked. I will sit and find every flaw in a movie I really like.
That might be his flaw.
But it's
say more about him.
It's because I like it that I'm willing to sit and be like, everything was great except for those 2 frames. Whereas if I didn't like it, I would have just glossed it over and been like, oh, it was bad.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was just a reminder of why I love the movies. It sucked me in just as the Dark Knight Returns did, the last movie. The
Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight, right. And not The Dark Knight Returns, that's the graphic novel we talked about. But, to me, it reminded me why I love the movies, reminded me why I grew up loving Batman. And it was pretty much everything I wanted it to be, and to me, it paid off on the hype. My final grade is an A.
I'm gonna give it an A-. There were just a few things I didn't care for. I'm gonna give it just a few steps below the Avengers, and right up there. It's like 1 and 1A for the summer so far, but Batman gets the 1A status, not the 1 status.
Okay, well we're probably in reverse on that one. I'd probably flip it.
But I mean, it's really how do you choose? They were both great films, and this has been a great trilogy that I was hoping would have went 1, 2, 3, getting better, but I think this one takes a quarter step back.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just me. Final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Go see it. You won't be sorry. It's an amazing feat. I think the Nolans really deserve all the praise that's going to be heaped on them. And hopefully, I really hope to see some Oscar nominations come out of this. More for just a supporting actor role, which I don't think would go to Tom Hardy, but I really would like to see this up for Best Picture. I don't think it can't. Really, especially the larger field has diluted it, but
they've expanded it up to 10. I don't think there's any chance this doesn't get a nod, unless maybe the Avengers does for some reason.
I'd love to see Nolan be up for Best Director. I really think this is going to go down as a superhero classic.
Well, and that's just it. This goes above the superhero genre, much like the last one did.
Right.
Yes, it's about a superhero, but you take the bat costume off of him, make him a detective, and it's just a great movie. Doesn't have to be a great superhero movie.
Right. Yeah, for me, I loved it. Dave, what are your final thoughts?
Well, I mean, I want to say I loved it, but I fell really, really in like with it. Anyway, I'm Dave Herndon.
And I'm David Comer.
And we'll be back with another movie or comic review real soon.